This video is sponsored by Last Flag. So what's the deal with the Team Fortress Classic engineer? How does he know the TF2 engineer? Why is he giving him goggles in this picture? Is he his dad? You know, I remember for a long time after this picture was shown in the engineer update, it was kind of the general consensus that this meant that the TFC engineer was the TF2 engineer's dad. And that's kind of always what I thought too, but it's never really been outright said what the relationship is between these two. He could just be his mentor or something. We see another photo of the TFC classes in the engineer update page too, so it is likely that he does know them in some way. But it's kind of a shame that the TF2 engineer never got to interact with any of the classic characters in the comics. Though he does mention his dad in the final comic, but never who he is. Just that he presumably also worked for the administrator. But the fact that Fred, the TFC engineer, doesn't know how to work with Australium or life-extending devices would probably indicate that he is not his dad. And because the engineer's dad was likely working for the administrator at the same time the classic mercenaries were fighting the Gravel War, they did obviously cross paths at least once. But unfortunately, the only two Team Fortress characters who had any kind of previous history with each other never got to see each other again, as far as we know. So since they did get to fight in the comics, that means that we have to make them fight to the death to find out who is the better engineer. But as usual, this is going to be mainly about comparing the game's weapons, stats, and abilities. It has nothing to do with the story, and we are going to restrict things to just default weapons. And these videos are primarily about comparing the classes and how they change between the games, and making them fight is just a fun way to do it, so it's not that serious, okay? Alright. In the blue corner, he's gonna dispense some pain, the Team Fortress Classic engineer. And in the red corner, it looks like he's brought more gun, the Team Fortress 2 engineer. But first, this match has been brought to you by the game Last Flag, releasing on Steam April 14th. A unique twist on Capture the Flag, where each team gets to place the flag themselves, anywhere on the map. And then it's up to you, as one of the 9 playable contestants with unique abilities and playstyles, to find it and to hold it. Along the way, you and your team are going to fight over radar towers for map control, and end the match with an intense battle to reclaim the flag. This summer, they're also going to be adding a new 10th contestant, a new map, and a new game mode. And don't worry, there's also plenty of cosmetic items, because of course there is, and you can earn those just by playing the game. But for a limited time only, you can get 20% off Last Flag for a week after launch with my code in the description in the pinned comment. And the first 50 people to use that code will also get a free permanent Team LFF skin for one of the 9 contestants. So go check it out. Last Flag releasing April 14th. For round 1, we gotta start with the usual, the health comparison. And Team Fortress 2's engineer is tied for the lowest in the game with Scout, Sniper, and Spy at 125. Meanwhile, the Team Fortress Classic engineer has the second lowest in the game with just 80, beating out only Scout's 75. But luckily for the engineer, he has 50 medium armor rather than light armor. Though, for some reason, the wiki claims the engineer has medium light armor, which absorbs 50% of damage taken as opposed to 60% that most medium armor does. So, like how normally if you took 100 damage with medium armor, 60 of that would go to your armor points and 40 of that to your health. And allegedly, instead, it would be 50-50 here. But like a lot of information out there about Team Fortress Classic, this is just not true. Like, the crowbar deals 18 damage, but an engineer is not split into 9 and 9. 10 comes from armor and 8 comes from health. So it turns out it functions exactly like every other medium armor type in the game. But that combination of health and armor will result in the TFC engineer effectively having 130 health. Yeah, for the light armor type, it's not usually as simple as just health plus armor to find the effective health. But for the stronger armors, more often than not, it actually is. And it may only be by 5, but that does give the TFC engineer a slight advantage here. And for the speed round, if you've watched any other videos in this series, it probably won't come as much of a surprise that both engineers have the exact same run speed, both being about average. While neither engineer necessarily has any unique abilities beyond building stuff, all characters in Team Fortress Classic do have the ability to bunny hop. And all classes in Team Fortress Classic have grenades. The engineer has the standard grenades, which just blow up and deal damage, but he also has a unique EMP grenade, which will detonate the ammo carried by any of the people it hits. This makes the explosion it causes against classes carrying a lot of explosives super big. But against a target without any, the damage and knockback is pretty minimal. So theoretically, against most TF2 classes that aren't aimed as Soldier or Delman, this wouldn't have too much of an effect. But this round still does go to TFC by default. And for round 4, we have Team Fortress Classic's double barrel shotgun versus Team Fortress 2's regular shotgun. This one is not going to be anything special, it's something we've seen twice before. And in heavy versus heavy, I did give this one to the Team Fortress 2 shotgun. The shotgun in TF2 deals significantly more close-range damage, and even outdamages the TFC shotgun at medium distances. But the TF2 shotgun's potential damage begins to fall off pretty massively outside of this range. It's dealing with both damage distance fall-off and the spread of the pellets, which results in it losing a lot of damage at long range. And while a TFC double-barrel shotgun is affected by pellet spread, it's also firing 40% more pellets, and like everything in Team Fortress Classic, its damage isn't affected by range. So comparatively, it deals far more range damage than the TF2 shotgun. It also has 8 shots as opposed to 6, and reloads a lot faster. So both do excel at different things, which is why I ultimately changed it to a tie in Soldier vs. Soldier, and I think I am going to stick with that here too. It's pretty hard to say one is just directly better than the other. The TF2 shotgun may be better in terms of how we traditionally use shotguns in video games, but in terms of just general power and utility, both are pretty solid weapons, so I do think a tie is fair. Round 5, the Railgun versus the pistol. Yeah, in Team Fortress Classic, the Engineer has this unique little laser gun. It's bad. Well, not all bad, but pretty bad. On the plus side, it deals 23 damage, which is more than the pistol does even at close range, where it has a max of 22. And because it doesn't have damage fall off, that means it deals almost 3 times the pistol's long range damage. Also, it never has to reload. It holds 50 shots and you don't ever have to stop to reload. That's also pretty good. And not only that, but it's also perfectly accurate. It doesn't have any kind of spread. And that sounds really good. In fact, this thing sounds pretty great. But compared to the pistol, it fires about 65% slower. And you're also dealing with the fact that it's firing a projectile and not hit scan like the pistol is. The Railgun's laser thing is also not especially fast. It's not super slow, but it's not fast. For comparison, it is a little bit faster than the Thompson's laser, but that's not really saying much. And speaking of, if you thought the current version of the Thompson was kind of finicky to hit people with, the Railgun is actually much harder. In Team Fortress Classic, non-explosive projectiles tend to have pretty small hitboxes. You have to be very accurate, which becomes a lot harder when your target is both moving and your gun fires pretty slow. I mean, at least if you hit someone with a Thompson, you're doing pretty decent damage, but the Railgun, it is just always 23. Yeah, that is higher than the pistol, but at what cost? The faster firing speed of the pistol and the fact that it has no travel time meant that it killed faster than the Railgun at every single distance. And that does include long range, which TF2 weapons generally have the advantage in. So yeah, the Railgun is kinda neat, but when you're better off using a shotgun at long range, then I think you're gonna struggle to find any reason to ever use it. And that means that the pistol is gonna win this round pretty easily. Round 6, the wrench versus the wrench. Now, normally, comparing TF2 and TFC melee weapons is very simple. TFC melee weapons are bad. They swing really fast, but they do like no damage, and TF2 melee weapons swing a lot slower, but they deal much better damage. In terms of their combat functionality, both wrenches are the same as any other standard melee weapon in either game. And that means the TF2 wrench will kill a lot faster than the TFC one will. But then things get a lot more complicated for these weapons specifically. Because think about it, a wrench in TF2 with these stats would be super, super good. Who cares about the damage penalty when you're upgrading and repairing at twice the speed? But then again, buildings do also function differently in Team Fortress Classic. It is a little bit hard to compare when talking about just the wrench. But we'll try. The Team Fortress Classic wrench does also have the unique ability of repairing friendly players' armor. Yeah, you could give some of your metal to give your teammates more armor, which is kinda like healing them, sorta. It doesn't increase their health, but it does give them more armor. And this can actually be used to reveal enemy spies, since you'll see they're not getting any additional armor. So that stat is definitely a plus, even if there isn't really any equivalent for Team Fortress 2. But the TF2 wrench does have its own unique stats relating to buildings. It's able to construct buildings faster by hitting them during deployment. And that's something that doesn't really apply to TFC buildings, for reasons we'll get into later, but it is unique to the TF2 wrench. However, the classic wrench is much, much more efficient at repairing. A level 3 Sentry in Team Fortress Classic has around 200 health, and I somehow got the game to recognize it as having 0% left. But with just one hit from the wrench, it was back to full, and it only used 44 metal. In TF2, just one hit from the wrench repairs 102 health and costs 34 metal. Well, at least for sentries and dispensers, it's actually a little bit different for teleporters for some reason. But either way, to repair that same amount of damage against a TF2 level 3 sentry, it would take 2 hits and about 50% more metal. And that's kinda crazy to think about. I mean, there are a ton of other factors that are different between the games that do play into these differences. Like, metal in general is just not as easy to get in TFC as it is in TF2. But just looking at these purely on their own, yeah, I actually think the TFC wrench wins. This is probably the only time you will ever see a TFC melee weapon win, so we'll let them have it. But what good is that wrench without its buildings? We're going to start off with the most simple of Engineer's buildings, which is probably the teleporters. What they do is they teleport you. Shocking, yes I know. And they function very similarly between both games, where you build an entrance that teleports you to the teleporter exit. In TFC, you open the build menu with a right click, where in Team Fortress 2, you do it through the construction PDA. But otherwise, the process is very similar. You use your metal to construct and repair buildings in both games. And in Team Fortress Classic, a teleporter builds in about 4.15 seconds. That's compared to Team Fortress 2's 21 seconds. But that is, of course, the base build speed without being wrench boosted, and when it's boosted, it will build in about 8.4 seconds, which is still more than double Team Fortress Classic's. So that means no matter what, your teleporter is going to build a lot slower in Team Fortress 2. And as we mentioned before, the TFC teleporter cannot be wrench boosted, but also, very importantly, you can't move at all in that 4.15 seconds while it's being built. Sure, it builds relatively fast, but you're stuck and completely helpless during the time that it's building. The classic teleporter also needs 125 metal to build compared to just 50 in Team Fortress 2. Of course, in TF2, it also used to be 125, but it was lowered down to just 50 in the Meet Your Match update. And another thing unique to the TF2 teleporter is that it can be upgraded. Again, this didn't start out as the case, but as of December 11th, 2008, TF2 teleporters can be upgraded to increase their health and reduce their recharge time. Speaking of, teleporters in TFC also have less health, only around 113-ish compared to TF2's 150, 180, and 216, depending on the level. And in Team Fortress Classic, the teleporter takes about 10.7 seconds to recharge, where in TF2, a level 1 will do so in 10 seconds. And then a level 2 takes 5 seconds, and a level 3 takes 3 seconds. And to continue with our trend of things added through updates, since the Engineer update in 2010, you can pick up and move your buildings in Team Fortress 2, where in Team Fortress Classic, that's just not a possibility. In TFC, you'll either have to dismantle or detonate your teleporter. And you have to be right next to your building to dismantle it, so I feel like you might as well just detonate it. And the detonation of teleporters can damage you, and it can damage enemies, but it doesn't really do all that much. Also, for some reason, in TFC, you get notified when an enemy steps on your entrance or your exit. I don't really know why, but it does. But in both games, you will kill an enemy who's standing on your exit, so I guess in Team Fortress Classic it will let you know when someone's on it. But it seems like in just about every possible way, aside from the initial construction speed, the TF2 teleporter is just better. So the first building round does go to Team Fortress 2. Next up we have the Dispenser versus the Dispenser. In Team Fortress Classic, the Dispenser is the cheapest and the fastest constructing of Engineer's buildings, costing 100 metal and actually building shockingly fast, in only 2 seconds, which is faster than a boosted mini-sentry. Of course, unlike a mini-sentry, you can't move or attack while it's building, but you're not going to be there for very long. And the TFC Dispenser dispenses ammo and armor, but it does not dispense health. Also, weirdly enough, it dispenses that ammo and armor to anyone, not just disguised spies, but anyone. You do get a notification when an enemy is using it, which can come into play when you detonate it, but we're going to get to that in a little bit. But overall, the rate at which the dispenser stores and gives out metal is pretty slow, and you do only get 20 at a time. It can give out more if more is stored up, but kind of annoyingly, you have to step away and then step back towards it for it to refresh. So if you're just standing next to your dispenser, you're not going to get anything. Meanwhile, even a level 1 dispenser in TF2 is already giving you 40 metal every 5 seconds, and you don't have to step away from it. Also, like the TF2 teleporter, the TF2 dispenser can be upgraded, and it can be moved. Each of those upgrades will increase the dispenser's dispense rate and its health. Both dispensers do start with the same base health of 150, but in Team Fortress 2, that'll go up with each level. And, the Team Fortress 2 dispenser also dispenses health, which is pretty important. But probably the most famous thing about the Team Fortress Classic dispenser is that you can blow it up. Well, yeah, you can blow up all of your buildings in Team Fortress Classic, but the dispenser is probably the best for that. It'll deal damage based on how much ammo is stored inside at the time, and it does hit pretty hard. But the downside to that, like all of your buildings in Team Fortress Classic, is that it also damages you when it explodes. And that even includes if it's destroyed by an enemy. So you don't want to be standing near your dispenser, or really any of your buildings when they're blown up. I mean, it's cool to kill enemies with, but that's kind of hard to consider a real pro when it's also going to kill you. So I don't think it's going to come as much of a surprise that TF2 is also going to win this round too. Round 9, Sentry versus Sentry. And as you could probably guess, this is likely the most complex round. It might be even the most complicated individual round of any of these videos. But luckily for us, both guns do have a lot of similarities. Both cost 130 metal to build. However, after construction, a TFC Sentry starts with only 25% ammo that needs to be added manually from an ammo supply that's separate from your metal supply. So it's more complicated there. But both Sentries do effectively have the same range, or very close to it. The TFC Sentry will continue to target enemy for a brief period after they leave its normal range, where the TF2 Sentry will stop firing immediately. But the Team Fortress Classic Sentry does have notably less range in the direction that it's not facing, so if it has to turn around, it won't see as far. And if you want your Sentry in TFC to be facing another direction, you need to stand next to it and turn it either 180 or 45 degrees. It cannot be rotated before it's placed like it can be in Team Fortress 2. And it should probably go without saying at this point, but it can't be picked up and it can't be moved. If you want your Sentry in another spot, you either need to dismantle it or blow it up. But like all buildings in Team Fortress Classic, its base construction speed is much faster than TF2's, only taking 5 seconds compared to TF2's 10.5. Though unlike dispensers and teleporters, when a TF2 Sentry is wrench boosted, it will actually build faster than TFC's in about 4.2 seconds. And just like the previous buildings, the TFC Engineer is stuck and unable to attack while building, where the TF2 Engineer is free to move around. But the TFC Engineer is finally able to upgrade something though. Classic Sentries can also be upgraded to level 3. Just like in TF2, a level 2 will gain more firepower and a level 3 will gain rockets. Except those rockets also need to be manually added in. In both games, level 1s start with 150 health, but in Team Fortress Classic, the health isn't outright listed, but instead shown as a percentage. That way you can usually figure out roughly how much health something has based on how much damage it takes from certain things. A level 2 has 180 health in both games, but a level 3 in Team Fortress Classic definitely has less health than Team Fortress 2's 216. It's roughly around 190 to 200, but I'm not sure exactly what. In both games, friendly engineers can upgrade your Sentry and repair your buildings, but the upgrading process is where the TFC Sentry definitely outshines the TF2 one. Instead of taking 200 metal to do so, it only takes 130. And you don't fill an upgrade bar with 8 hits like you do in TF2. If you have 130 metal, you will upgrade your Sentry in one single swing. Not only that, but the upgrade is basically instantaneous and doesn't have to go through an animation like it does in TF2. And also, if you have 130 or more metal, it will instantly heal off any of the damage your Sentry took and upgrade it at the same time. The only real downside to this compared to TF2 is that if you have under 130 metal, you can't put some of that towards upgrading it and then stop, and then come back and do more later. But that's really not that big of a deal. And lastly, in terms of damage, again, both Sentries are quite similar. Though the Team Fortress Classic Sentry does have noticeably less knockback compared to TF2's, which does have a lot. The TF2 Sentry takes about 0.21 seconds to target an enemy before it starts firing, where the Team Fortress Classic one takes about 0.37 seconds. A level 1 TF2 Sentry also appears to have a very slightly higher damage output than Team Fortress Classics. But for level 2s and for level 3s, they are very, very similar. And overall, despite how many factors there are, both Sentries do function very closely to each other. Like if you just transported the TFC Sentry into TF2 or vice versa, they really wouldn't be all that different. But for which one is better, it really comes down to the ability to move it versus the ability to upgrade it faster and for less metal. And as great as the ability to move your Sentry is, and it is a really, really great ability, I do think the speed and efficiency that a Team Fortress Classic Sentry can be upgraded in is what gives it a win. In a defensive situation, being able to have a level 3 that fast can be really, really important. Of course, if it gets destroyed while you're next to it, you're probably going to get blown up too, but just don't let it get blown up. But now it's time for the final round, one-on-one. And I'm going to be completely honest with you, going into this, I thought this would be a complete blowout for Team Fortress 2. Maybe not launch day TF2, but definitely modern TF2. Engineer has been buffed a ton since the game came out, where obviously Team Fortress Classic Engineer hasn't. But despite that, the TFC Engineer has held his own shockingly well. To recap, TFC is very slightly bulkier with armor, he has grenades, his wrench swings super fast and repairs very efficiently, and his Sentry can be upgraded instantly with enough metal. For Team Fortress 2, the Engineer deals more close-range damage, his Dispenser and Teleporters are way better, he can move and attack while his buildings are being constructed, and he can pick up and move his buildings. And theoretically, in the best case scenario, the Team Fortress Classic Engineer could instantly kill the TF2 Engineer with a well-timed grenade, or by detonating his Dispenser on him. If, he was to stand right next to it for some reason. And theoretically, the TF2 Engineer could kill the TFC Engineer in 0.65 seconds with 2 blasts from a shotgun. And of course, both would just get completely obliterated if they were put in front of a level 3. And that's kind of the thing though, these classes weren't really made for direct combat. Without their buildings, it's a pretty even game, but I do think it does slightly favor Team Fortress Classic. He would want to avoid getting too close and just kind of stay back and pepper the TF2 Engineer with his no-fall-off shotgun shots. But TF2's pistol is still a pretty decent ranged weapon that could even hypothetically outdamage the double barrel shotgun at range. Which sounds kind of like a weird thing to say, like obviously the pistol should be way better, but, you know, no fall off in Team Fortress Classic. But then TFC can throw his grenades into the mix that will either outright damage the TF2 engineer or possibly force him into more predictable movement. So, without buildings, TFC does likely have a small advantage here. But why are we even talking about that? This is engineer versus engineer. They gotta have buildings. If they had unlimited prep time, I'm sure they would just fortify themselves into hard-to-reach positions, and it would be almost impossible for either of them to do much of anything. But let's just assume that both engineers are placed into an arena-style map that had no resupply cabinets, limited metal pickups, and a point in the center of the map that opens up if a minute has passed. In order to win, they either need to kill each other or cap the point. They can't just avoid each other forever. And for the sake of simplicity and this hypothetical, let's just say that the bridge on 2 Fort has a capture point on it. So if the TF2 engineer is smart, and he has 11 PhDs, so he probably is, he would probably just immediately book it towards the objective. That's where both will eventually have to go. And that would pretty much force the TFC engineer to probably have to do the same thing. The TFC engineer really has no reason to build anything on his side of the map because he can't move his buildings. If the TFC engineer hopes to get a kill with this Sentry, he pretty much has to set it up at the objective. But remember that in doing so, he is made completely vulnerable, which makes it very dangerous to try. And if they both start building at the same time, the TF2 engineer wins because a wrench-boosted Sentry does build faster. The TF2 engineer is also capable of placing his buildings mid-combat, which would force the TFC engineer to take the time to destroy it. Or a constructing TF2 building can also be used to block damage. Of course, shooting it right as it starts constructing will destroy it, but if it has even a little bit of time to build, that can work. And remember that the TFC shotgun's damage is really not that great. Even at point blank, it's only 51. Grenades would make pretty quick work of TF2's buildings, but they do take about 4 seconds to arm. So basically I feel like this becomes like almost a game of chicken to try to bait someone to trying to set up first so that you can attack them, or not attack them, or whatever. However, overall, I do think TF2 has more options here. Like, he could build a dispenser near the point and keep popping out to deal some damage to the TFC engineer while running back to hide and heal, while also listening for if the TFC engineer starts building a sentry, because then he can run out and go kill him. But you do only have a 5-second window to do that. If the TFC engineer gets a sentry up, he basically wins. And remember, the TFC engineer's dispenser only gives armor, so he can't do the same thing nearly as reliably. The TF2 engineer could also do the same thing with a sentry gun, where he builds that near the point, and then moves it out if the TFC engineer attempts to build, because redeploying buildings do construct a lot faster, and they do start with full health. But the TFC engineer can still harass the TF2 engineer with grenades if he knows he's going to be building around a corner or something like that. It becomes a whole thing, and you kind of just have to guess who's going to do what. The TF2 engineer could also just plop down a sentry on his side of the point and then go out there, which would prevent the Team Fortress Classic engineer from even trying to build anything, and you can go back and pick it up afterwards if you don't die. Of course, you do risk getting killed in that time, but that is an option. And TFC's options for buildings are really just build or don't. And if you don't, then you probably want to go for the hyper-aggressive option and just go straight for the kill before the TF2 engineer has any time to do anything. But ultimately, I do think this makes TFC more predictable, which would push the advantage over to Team Fortress 2. Alright, TF2 takes home another one after 2 back-to-back losses. But this one was actually pretty close. And some of you do still wonder why I don't include unlocks, and I think Engineer might actually be possibly the best example as to why. Because equipping the Gunslinger in the Short Circuit turns this from a really close one to an easy win for TF2. You have more health, you can completely nullify grenades, and then you can just put down a mini sentry wherever you want and basically win. If the TF2 Engineer had this loadout, I really don't think it'd be very close at all. But even without it, I still do think TF2 wins. I mean, despite how close a hypothetical fight between these two characters would be, it is still pretty clear how much better the TF2 Engineer is overall. Being able to upgrade your Dispenser and your teleporters is pretty massive, Dispensers giving health is huge, moving your buildings is huge, and in both the transition from TFC to TF2 and in the updates he got in TF2, they really smoothed everything out and made the TF2 Engineer a much more dynamic and interesting class. In my opinion, basically everything was done better. Which is, what you'd hope for in a sequel, right? And I guess next up, it's going to be down to either Medic or Delman, so, let me know what you want to see. But, anyway, thanks for watching, and of course a big thanks to this video's sponsor, Last Flag, which you can check out using the link in the description and the pinned comment. And then an even bigger thanks to my patrons like Varric, Captain Forex, Egox, Colonel, Probably Vinegar, Caponkis, Kelso the Pirate, Pillsman's Fox, Some Crazy Idiot, Ozond, Evil Toaster, Salt God, Lavi, Taupe, Lord Remium, Man344, Nolan46, and Melody G.